Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's like gloomy too. Feels strange, but yeah, we'll just give it for everybody to trickle in. Let's see if I hope everybody's having a good week.
Man, excellent week. And I don't. Are you guys catching some of those green candles? Some of those candles are going crazy. It's not a bull market, but some projects, some for good reason, others. I don't know if anybody's an Aptos fan, but they went 6x in the last, I want to say like month or less than that. And I have no idea what's going on in Aptos. I don't even know if there's anybody building anything in Aptos. It just went up for
Observation: the
causing.
most fudded projects of Q3 2022, Solana and Aptos, are like the best performers this year because everybody was fighting Solana. Everybody was fighting Aptos when it came out. And yeah, for the people who ignored the noise, they're definitely, came out winning.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun on those ones. So I lost on both accounts.
Yeah, that's going to be my new investment. Not financial advice, but what everybody's fudding, just go with that, right? So, what do you feel like fudding today, Dal?
Aptos. I still have. I literally don't know like why people. I'm guessing it's whales who are manipulating the markets now because I don't see any developer activity. The TVL is less than $60 million, but the value is like what 12 billion or something like that. I mean, it's a cool tech, but I don't see anything really going on just yet. So
Interesting. Yeah, we'll give it a minute for everybody to join. I know Tammy should be joining us also as well. We're going to spend the first couple of minutes talking to Matt. We're going to talk a little bit about something that we don't talk much about here is Filecoin and what they got going on and how they're moving to some new tech that's coming out. So that should be
Yes.
interesting.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. What's up, Matt? Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning. Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
again.
it's always good to have you here. Hope you're having your coffee. Are you East Coast or West Coast?
I'm closer to East Coast. I'm actually in Barbados.
Okay, nice.
So I'm East Coast and down a bit.
Nice. Barbados. Nice place to be.
Actually, we're just rushing around and forgot to actually get my coffee ready. So I'll be making that in the background here.
Tammy's here. Let me invite her up. But yeah, I hope everybody's having a good week. While Matt gets his coffee, I'll just go ahead and give my disclaimer. Nothing said here is financial advice. This is for international, entertainment purposes only. And yeah, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you to my partners at Binance US. Make sure to check out my pinned tweet. Over 150 crypto assets and no trading fees on ETH and Bitcoin. So definitely can't beat free stuff. But yeah, I hope everybody's having a good week. Tammy, what's up? Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Sorry, I'm a little late. I always think I have way more time in the mornings than I do. So sorry, I was a little bit late, but I'm doing great. How is everybody else?
Doing good. Can't complain. Can't complain. A lot of stuff going on this week. But yeah, I'm ready to get started if you guys are. Let's see if Matt is there. So maybe let's talk about what we know about Filecoin. And then, because from what I know, the little that I know about Filecoin, they've typically been known for like a data storage kind of blockchain. Am I right on that, Dal? Like when you hear Filecoin, what do you think current state?
yeah, data storage, alternative to AWS. I don't know if you guys know like S3, simple storage solution that they have, where you basically can store any kind of file. If we go dive a little bit deeper, there's this thing called IPFS, which is like a protocol for storage that didn't have a coin, right? And so my understanding is that Filecoin is like a tokenized layer on top of IPFS, right? So you actually like reward people for providing storage, because otherwise, like, why would they keep the storage for you, right? So that's my understanding of Filecoin. It's an interesting project because storage makes sense, right? You don't want to. I mean, most people, most engineers don't want to store large data directly on the blockchain. But then that begs the question. Let's say, for example, you have like a collection of NFTs that point to videos or large format. Do you feel safe storing them on AWS, knowing that you're reintroducing centralization? Right, and I think that's when Filecoin comes in as a decentralized alternative to AWS and Google and Microsoft cloud services.
Yeah, that's a really good. So that's good to hear. Kind of your take on this to see what what you think of this, because you're pretty spot on there, right? So there was a protocol called IPFS, which stands for the Interplanetary File System, and IPFS, it allows you to reference data not by a location, but by what's called a content ID, right? So if you think about typically when you go to an address on the web, a URL, it's whatever www./somedomain.com/some folder /whatever.pdf, right? And that's how you get your download, say a PDF or something like that. Now, the problem with that being is the file at the end of that address can easily be changed, right? And okay, that might be great, but it also can create problems, because say you reference that file in something else. Maybe it's a file like a financial report of some kind, and you reference that file in some printed material or something like that, and then somebody goes to it. How do they know if they go back to that file, a year later, that it's the same file that it was originally, right? Somebody could have updated that PDF and put a new PDF at that same address. Now, what IPFS does is the address is actually a content hash of the data. So if you were to change the data, then the address would change. And that's why if you see IPFS URIs, and you see a lot of them in like NFTs, right? And you'll see IPFS : / and then a series of what look like random letters that make up the address, right? Sometimes it starts BAY, or some other just like random, it would look like random set of letters. But what those letters are is part of a cryptographic hash, a fingerprint of that data. So if the data changes, the address changes. So that means you can be sure that that data is the same data that's referenced. So that's why it's used a lot for NFTs, right? Because what use is an NFT if somebody could just go and change out the underlying asset that the NFT is pointing to without you knowing, right? That weakens kind of like the value proposition of what an NFT is. So that's all great, and like you said, that's fine. But one of the problems being is there's no incentivization for other nodes on the network to actually store this data, right? So unless you're using what's called a pinning service, then there's no reason for any of the nodes on the network to kind of keep copies of your data. Now, what Filecoin adds is an incentivization system to incentivize people using a crypto economic model. So Filecoin has a token. IPFS has nothing to do with blockchain or cryptocurrencies or anything of its own. But what Filecoin adds is a token and a sort of economic model by which storage providers can get paid for storing your data. And they have to periodically prove that they've still got your data. So every day they have to complete a cryptographic proof that shows that they still have your data. And if they don't, then they lose some of the stake that they've had to put up to become a storage provider on the network. So there's a real monetary incentive for them not to screw up and lose your data. So that's what Filecoin adds. And one little subtle bit to be clear is that Filecoin is not really a layer on IPFS. Filecoin is a separate sort of sister network to IPFS, but that uses a lot of the same technology. And there's some crossover between them, but it's not, don't think of it as like a layer 2 on a technical term, or on a technical sense. They are actually separate networks, but there is, some bridging between them and interoperability between them.
Great breakdown, Matt. Great breakdown. And we have some hands up, so I'll go to In Motion. Good morning, and then Crypto Jesus.
Hey, what's up, Jess? Thanks for having me up.
Good morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just on top of the whole IPFS thing, in case anyone isn't knowledgeable about this, but there are currently distributed databases also. So you could start banging away legit applications. You have things like Flurry and Kiwi and stuff. They're distributed SQL databases.
Awesome. Thanks for the input. What's up,
Can you,
Jesus?
sorry to interrupt, can you break down for the rest of the audience, like why you made that difference between storing files and versus databases?
Yeah. So, files are its own thing, and right now, just there's this whole ecosystem right now of everybody's trying to kind of offload web applications into a distributed space. Well, specifically in the Web3 space, but people are starting to wonder of how to offload their full stack websites from a traditional hosting solution onto a more decentralized space. So you can, in conjunction with IPFS, you could start kind of creating Web2 solutions in the Web3 space.
Thank you, Dal. You're always like, explain it to me like I'm 5 so everybody understands. I appreciate that. What's up, Jesus?
GM, Jazz, Tammy, Dow, everyone on stage. Great to see you all. Yo, Dow, I like the questions you ask, man. They are very good for making people think. We actually use IPFS ourselves, so I am a big fan. But I will say on the Filecoin conversation, Matt, have you tried out Arweave? Because in my opinion, Arweave, at least in their current stance, is always going to beat out Filecoin. Because not only does it cost less, but you only have to pay one time to host data indefinitely. Well, with Filecoin, you have to do like an ENS equivalent of paying a subscription base.
So that's right. That's a very good point. There's a number of other kind of storage networks out there that are kind of in the same space as Filecoin, but they operate a little bit differently. So with Filecoin, you make a deal with a storage provider. So if you've got some data to store, you make a deal with a storage provider and say, hey, I want to store this, 100 gigabytes of data for 2 years. And the storage provider will say, okay, this is the price, I want for storing that. And once you've negotiated that with the storage provider, that proof is then published on chain. And then, the process starts, the cryptographic process starts, in which they have to keep proving they've got the data, and they get then slowly drip fed the payment over the duration of that time. Other protocols like Arweave, you pay upfront like a one-off fee, and that then supposedly gives you, I can't remember what it is, like 200 years, I think they say, of data storage. Now, they're working on the basis that hopefully the value of the token goes up enough to keep that economical for them, right? Or there's, I don't fully claim to know their exact model, but it is.
Yeah, no, you're kind of right, Matt. They're not 100% dependent on token increase, but it is a factor in incurring indefinite supply and demand.
Right.
Obviously you want to keep increasing your new users. They want more and more data to be stored on Arweave, and thankfully, because of the nature of the service they're providing, even in a bear market, you still have people storing things, and it's not like people are unstoring things and getting their money back, because obviously you cannot. But yeah, people are going to keep storing things, so it is very much a linear growth model, and it works very well.
Yeah. And one of the big differences is, the scale of the network. So the Filecoin network has a total committed storage capacity of, I think it's about 16 exabytes of data at the moment. So that's about 1% of the entire total data center storage capacity around at the moment. So this is many, many, many orders of magnitude larger than even any of the nearest competitors or people like Arweave. And you can build an Arweave-like model on top of Filecoin. So for example, there's a product called Lighthouse that is working on the notion of perpetual storage. And the idea of perpetual storage is similar to what kind of Arweave is doing. And you can build that model on top of Filecoin. So Filecoin is a lot more flexible, and you can build these different economic models on top should you wish to do so. So there's some storage provider helpers that they're called, such as Lighthouse, Web3 storage, NFT storage, Estuary, and these are all what are called storage helpers, and they give you a nice simple API that you can upload your data to, and they take care of negotiating storage deals, storing it in, I think it's six different storage deals they negotiate, and they also put it on the IPFS network, which, like I said, is a kind of a sister network, but it is a separate network, and they pin it on there as well. So if you upload to something like NFT storage, and I believe OpenSea and a few of the other big marketplaces use NFT storage for their underlying storage, then it's placed on both the IPFS networks and on the Filecoin network. So you have the benefit of the sort of ubiquity of the IPFS network, but then you have the long-term archival storage of the Filecoin network.
Yeah, it's pretty
it's going to be kept around.
But Matt, honestly, in my opinion, if you look at market share today, obviously Filecoin used to dominate, but now Arweave dominates in the space. And ultimately, what it really comes down to is cost, because anyone can make the argument all day in either direction, but relatively, they're just about as secure and as decentralized as each other. But the number one factor all day is going to be cost after that. And the storage factor being indefinite is also extremely attractive. So I guess I'm curious to see if Filecoin is going to develop really anything more innovative / unique to really distinguish themselves from Arweave in the future.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and we. Sorry, Matt. And we are going to talk about the FVM. So I don't want to get too stuck on the data storage because that's current state. But Matt, go ahead and respond, and then we'll go through the hands.
Sure. I mean, I'll mention FVM now because it is quite a nice segue, and then we'll go to some of the other hands, and then we'll kind of get back to that. But so one of the big technological advances, and specifically the bit that I'm working on at the moment, is FVM, the Filecoin virtual machine. And this gives you a virtual machine that you can run smart contracts on, including Ethereum. The main ones we've launched at the moment are Ethereum compatible smart contracts. So there's the FEVM, the Filecoin Ethereum virtual machine, that allows you to write your smart contracts in Solidity, compile them, and deploy them. So you can use all the same tools. You can use Remix, you can use Hardhat, Truffle, et cetera, and deploy standard Open Zeppelin contracts or whatever you want to do on the Filecoin network. And that then opens up a lot more of these marketplaces, and this innovation that you're talking about is going to be possible directly on Filecoin's own layer 1 network, right? So that's pretty exciting because there's a lot of interesting models people can build on it. Like at the moment, for example, NFT storage is free, right? So if you want to store some stuff for your, say, NFTs or whatever, use NFT storage. It's free. So that's not going to cost you anything. So the price, thing is not a consideration there. And then if you look at the larger storage, there's a initiative called Phil Plus that actually ends up rewarding storage providers at a higher rate for storing the data, such that you can actually sometimes end up with this sort of inverse market where a storage provider will pay you to take your data and store it, because by storing that data, the incentive of the network means that they will actually get paid more long-term for storing that data. So they're actually incentivized to, like I said, literally pay you to take your data and store it. So that's quite an interesting model there as well. So all of these are flexible that can be built on top of the Filecoin network.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great segue. I know there were some hands up. Daniel, you had your hand up. Did you want to chime in? And then Nico?
I got a question, but I don't want to deviate. So
no, go ahead with your question before you forget.
Okay. Well, the question was, you started, Matt, with the immutability of the files and how the information is hashed. So, and I posted a tweet on top, Jess. Sorry about that. But so I use Fleek, right? I use Fleek to host domains and to basically store some of my files, which is basically just the front end for IPFS. And I understand that files can, if you change a file, the hash is different. But in my case, I believe this was like a year or more ago when I created the site. I'm pointing to a direction in GitHub where I'm hosting the website, and I remember that I did it in a way that I could make changes to the website, and the hash would still work. Like the the resolver will still send to this place in GitHub, because the HTML file, even though I change it, I think it was still pointing out to the same HTML file. So I could make all kinds of changes without incurring another gas fee transaction. So, I mean, what's the that's an files. That's okay. I think we can understand, because it's kind of like scanning the information in the file and hashing it into it. But directions, that's a point of failure, right, or a vector of attack too. Is that correct, Matt?
So I believe what Fleek uses. So Fleek is a hosting service. It allows you to host websites, and as you mentioned, it's got like GitHub integration, so you can sort of push something to GitHub, use something like GitHub Pages, and then push that out to Fleek. Now, Fleek, I believe, uses IPNS, which is a naming service on top of IPFS, and that is what allows like an extra level of redirection that means you can have a stable address pointing to the same website, so that it doesn't change continually. You go and update a typo, you don't want your address to change, right? So I believe that's what Fleek is using a service called IPNS, which gives you that indirection to allow you to maintain that address while you're doing updates.
So this is basically has nothing to do with storage, right? This is more like
so
the name
Fleek,
service.
Yeah. I mean, so Fleek is on the IPFS network, and by using their service, I believe they're acting as a pinning service to pin the data you upload to them to the IPFS network. And then any other node on the IPFS network can cache that data and serve it up. So the whole point about IPFS is, for example, if you use something like the Brave web browser, the Brave web browser has built into it a IPFS node. And so if you go and access something via IPFS, it'll actually download it and store it, and could potentially serve it up to others as well, right? So the idea behind IPFS is you can fetch the data from multiple locations, some of which might be a lot closer to you than the original location. So you have redundancy, you have also more efficient, access to the data. And that's kind of where the interplanetary kind of meme and the name of IPFS comes from, is the idea being is, if I have some data stored here on Earth and I'm now living on Mars, I don't want to have to wait. I don't know what the speed of light distance is between Earth and Mars, but I don't want to have to wait that long for, accessing data for it to turn up. So if there's an IPFS node on Mars, then that could be caching that data there and allowing much more faster retrieval. Right?
That explains it very well. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
No problem. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. I did not understand 2/3 of that, but I'm sure you did. You guys are very technical. I try to keep up. Nico, I saw you had your hand up. Was there anything that you wanted to ask or chime in on? Welcome,
I did. Well, hi, good morning, guys. I did. He actually, Matt, you actually preemptively answered my question before I could even ask it. So Filecoin is really cool. It's just the FVM. I've been waiting for that for a while. Like that's what I was going to ask.
So I have a general question about the FVM. So obviously there's a lot of, layer one out there that are EVM compatible. Like, what would be the benefit of building smart contracts on Filecoin versus another layer one that's EVM compatible?
That is a very good question, Jess. I'm glad you asked that. Right. So on the Filecoin network, you could build anything that you could do on Ethereum, right? Because like I said, it's Ethereum compatible. So you could put in your own, whatever, like you could copy over like a DEX contract or a lending and borrowing contract or bridge contract or, whatever you want to do. NFTs, go and deploy your own crypto kitties, whatever it is you want to do, you could do on the Filecoin network. Why would you want to do that versus another layer one network with Ethereum compatibility? Well, the main thing that Filecoin has is access to this massive storage market, right? Now, the whole kind of, Filecoin has this big, basically, master plan. They kind of jokingly refer to it as the big secret master plan, and it's the most unsecret thing in the world. And it's kind of step one, build a big decentralized storage network. Step two, store, humanity's data. Step three, allow compute over that data, right? So once you've got all the data stored, the next thing you probably want to do is do something with that data, right? There's no point in just storing data, just for the hell of it. You generally are going to want to do something with that data. So where FEM comes in is you can actually access from within smart contracts. You can access some of the state of the storage providers and the miners, and you can look at the network to verify that something has actually been stored. So what you can create is, for example, something called a data DAO. So most of you may be familiar with a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, in which you have some kind of smart contract. People contribute some funds to that smart contract. Smart contract holds those funds, possibly rewards the people that contribute with some kind of token. That token is then used for kind of governance and voting. Anybody could maybe submit some sort of proposal, and then people vote on that proposal, right? That's kind of what a DAO generally does. Now, a data DAO now adds in the notion of, well, we can access data, right? So what if you have some data that you want to store long term, and you want to ensure its storage long term? So this DAO can actually fund that long term perpetual storage, for example. Or you could have a smart contract that could deal with effectively like self-replication and self-healing. So you say, I want to have no less than 5 copies of this data stored on the Filecoin network. That smart contract can actually look at the storage deals and ensure that they are all valid. And if for whatever reason one of them expires or drops out, or the storage provider, the miner that is hosting that data, for whatever reason vanishes, then the smart contract could then basically incentivize somebody to create a new storage deal and reward them for doing so. So it could then bring that level of redundancy back up again. So that's kind of the reason for the FEM and why you'd want to build upon it, because you've now got access not only to programmability, but this entire storage market that's available as well.
And this is expected to launch in March of this year?
That is correct. Yeah. So FEM is launching on mainnet in early March. We've currently got it on a testnet. So there's a testnet called Space Warp. The testnet is called Hyperspace. We have an initiative called Space Warp, which is if you go to spacewarp.fem.dev, I think Jess has pinned a tweet at the top with details on it. If you go to spacewarp.fem.dev, we're running a sort of program at the moment. We're running a big hackathon in conjunction with ETH Global. We've got about, I can't remember, it's about 1,000 registered participants that are currently building things as part of the ETH Global hackathon for Space Warp. And so, yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. We've got about $400,000 worth of prizes for the Space Warp initiative.
That's awesome. And what about so Filecoin Foundation, I'm guessing, is looking for developers and incentivizing developers to join the ecosystem. Where would be the best place to check? Is it like the GitHub to check what people are currently building on there, or what plans they have, or what projects they have planned to build?
So you can look and see, I mean, everybody's sort of building in different places, so it's not that straightforward to see exactly what's going on. There is the ETH Global Discord is where most of the activity is happening, and people are on there as part of ETH Global. Now, I can't remember whether you can access the ETH Global Discord unless you are actually a registered participant of the ETH Global. But the hackathon runs until, I think it's the 10th of February, 13th of February, something like that. And when it finishes, I'm sure there will be announcements of who's building what and prizes and all that lot. So you'll be able to see then as well what people are building.
No, I think it's interesting because I feel like Filecoin has always been boxed into this like storage only protocol, and now to see them like coming out with smart contracts and being EVM compatible, like, hey, something to look out for. But yeah, good stuff. Dow, Tammy, any other questions that you guys had?
Nope, I am good. Great information.
Yeah, I'm looking up some of the apps you guys mentioned, so looking at Fleek as well.
Yeah, Fleek's a good one. Like I said, that's part of storing stuff on IPFS. Lighthouse is a very interesting one as well, and that's doing the perpetual storage deals as well, and they're working as part of the space warp. What's interesting is we're seeing a lot of people who actually started prototyping stuff on other networks like Polygon, and then bringing that over to FEM. Because they were sort of waiting for FEM to be available on testnet, and so they were building on Polygon in the meantime, and then have moved that over now that it's available and now that you can build on it. So that's pretty cool to see as well, that there's that level of compatibility that you can just move stuff over and use, like I say, all your existing tooling, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting to see. I was just looking at something here. Yeah, I do have a question just in general about Filecoin. So you said that the storage providers get compensated for storing the data for others. What about people that give up their data? Do participants get rewarded just in the Filecoin ecosystem for giving up their data?
So they can do. So what happens is a storage client negotiates a deal with one or more storage providers, right? And that bit at the moment happens off chain, right? That is not one of the things about Filecoin is it's not very prescriptive about how you do things. You can do some of these things off chain, because if you think about it, some people might be have whatever petabytes of data, and really the fastest way of getting it somewhere is a station wagon full of hard drives, right? So it's not prescriptive as to how exactly you transfer and negotiate these deals, and the storage providers might want to negotiate particular special deals with people, so that's kind of up to them. What can happen is, like I said, under the Phil Plus program, which rewards kind of what are called verified clients, and the verification process is relatively easy and involves basically linking your GitHub account to your wallet. Then you get an internal token called data cap, and that data cap then allows you to effectively multiply the rewards that a storage provider will get for storing your data. And in return for that, the storage provider might actually share some of that with you and might actually pay you to get the data, right? Because if the storage provider knows that over the space of the year, they're going to get $1,000 for storing your data, then they might be willing to pay you $500, $200, whatever it might be, to get that data, to then get that $1,000 reward over the years. And another interesting thing with regards to this is, people are probably familiar in the DeFi sense with lending and borrowing on DeFi and over collateralized lending, right? So I put up $150 worth of Bitcoin or XRP or something like that, and I can borrow $100 against that, right? So typically you put up something like 150% of the collateral value, or maybe 200% collateral value. Now, with Filecoin, you can now do under collateralized lending. And that is on the basis that a storage provider, once they've negotiated the storage deal, they know they're getting an income stream. As long as they store that data, they know they're getting an income stream over the lifetime of the storage deal, which might be, say, a year or 2 years. They know that they've got that data, that income coming in. And the network, the blockchain, can actually show evidence for that and proof of that. So storage providers can effectively use that future income and borrow against it, doing under collateralized lending. So they can, think about it a bit like, say, an Airbnb host who's got a diary full of bookings. They could go to the bank and say, hey, look, can I borrow $10,000 against the basis that I have this order book full of income coming in over the next year, and the lender might be willing to lend against that future income, because they can see that, and they can also see their past income and see that they've been responsible, so they can potentially borrow against it. So that's an interesting new model that's not sort of really been that available in traditional DeFi sense. And all of this is enabled by the fact that there's storage providers with, racks full of data, racks full of hard drives, storing data, right? So there's real infrastructure behind all of this, which kind of underpins, if you look at from an investment point of view, and Phil, and again, not investment advice, et cetera, but the Phil token that's used in this economy, like I said, all of this is there's real hardware and businesses. There's about 4,000 storage providers around the world that are running storage services, and like I said, it represents about 1% of the total entire data center capacity on the internet at the moment. So it's a pretty big network.
Oh wow, that's impressive. Matt, welcome. Good morning. 1%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Matt, the whole time you was talking, I was just like, yes, finally, somebody's bringing light to Phil, and
Cool.
and you make a lot of sense.
You're a Phil fan?
Huh?
You're a Phil fan?
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you. But yeah, the whole time Matt was talking, I was like, it's got to be a Matt, because we make sense, and we
do make sense. Matt's makes sense.
Matt's make sense. Yeah. So
indeed.
Excellent. So yeah, Phil was one of the first coins I learned about on Coinbase. Filecoin was the first one. When I first signed up to Coinbase, File was one of the first cryptocurrencies, besides Dogecoin, that I wanted to take a deeper dive into. This was back in late 2019, early 2020. So learned about Filecoin. I was like, oh shit, this is cool. This crypto is basically decentralizing cloud storage, and so you could have a normal computer with maybe 2 GB, nobody's using it, and somebody could pay you in Filecoin to store their data on your system software, and we don't have to use iCloud or Amazon or Google. So this is basically, that's how I see Filecoin, like decentralized storage. But they also have this thing called like data entry. So I made a list of, and it was a stupid list. When the list I made was cryptocurrencies that you can earn on Coinbase. So I made a whole list. I made like a data set about the cryptocurrencies that Coinbase will pay you to learn about. That was my data set. And I'm chilling, and then I see Filecoin drop into your wallet. 3 people access your data set. I was like, oh shit, somebody's paying me for this? And the data sets are endless. You can make a data set about all the Starbucks in your areas that have vanilla icings. You can make a data set about all the courthouses in your city that have wheelchair accessible parking. For some reason or not, somebody will pay for these data sets. Okay. And you can, and Filecoin to me, like I said, is decentralized storage. I bought into it at the time, late 2019, all into 2020. I had Filecoin in my Coinbase, and March of 2021, Filecoin went to $237 a coin. So yeah, I was out of there. Of course it condensed, and it's back down to like $5, but still, like, I think going forward, I always look future into the forward. Like, I think 10, 15 years from now, like, a lot of people are going to be using Filecoin. Once cryptocurrency gets like widely adopted, Filecoin is going to be one of those cryptocurrencies that's going to be around for a while.
And I know, Matt, you just came in, but what we were talking about is that Filecoin is introducing FVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine on Filecoin, so you'll be able to deploy smart contracts.
Exactly. They're gonna grow. I'm telling you, like, technology and decentralized storage, that, like, I'm telling you, that's one of the main information, data, all these industries, anything that has to do anything is only gonna grow from this point on. And Filecoin is gonna be one of those cryptocurrencies. Gonna be like, man, I wish I would have got involved in that. So yeah, I'm still bullish on Filecoin. I still have Filecoin, and I love it.
That's great to hear. And like you said, yeah, everybody needs storage, right? I mean, this is a thing. And, as we are growing like to more and more a like information centric world, then the integrity and availability of information is a really key thing. And one of the key goals of Filecoin is to store humanity's data. So there's things like, recently there was a group that did a bunch of, I can't remember exactly where they were, but they were doing, reportage in a like a conflict zone. They had photos, reports they were taking of what was going on in there, and humanitarian crises, conflict, wars, that kind of thing. And they're storing that data on Filecoin and IPFS on the basis that if a loss, if this gets taken to some like war crimes tribunal or something like that, that might not happen for 10 years, 15 years. And you need to be able to look back and say that those photos haven't been doctored, right?
Yep.
Those words have not been changed. And that's one of the things that, Filecoin allows.
Matt, I would add to that before you continue. If like, let's say Amazon or Google or Apple had, these major cloud providers, if they had something on their network or their storage that they didn't think like a government tried to hide, or these things could be deleted from their servers. But like on Filecoin, this is decentralized. Like, it's here. It's like there, you can't be altered. Go ahead.
Exactly. And, it's going into space, right? Lockheed Martin, they announced a year ago, and I think they've announced just recently in Davos the actual, implementation. So on Lockheed Martin have what's called a technology demonstrator satellite that they're sending up into space. This thing's like about the size of a fridge, and it's got a bunch of stuff on there. And one of the things is going to be an IPFS node. Right, so literally, the interplanetary file system is going into space for real. To the moon, literally. So this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm pretty shocked that Matt is a Filecoin maxi. But hey, you learn something about your friends every day.
I'm not a Filecoin maxi, but it is a pretty damn good
the
technology.
Other Matt, sorry,
the other Matt.
Matt now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's Matt. Sorry, Matt. I forgot we had two Matts. Yeah, it's
no problem.
Nico, what's up?
Oh, my bad. I thought I was unmuted. I actually share a similar sentiment with Matt about Filecoin because
Which Matt?
It's Matt now. Yeah, we're like it was one of the first coins available on Coinbase, but it wasn't available in New York, and then it skyrocketed. I was actually going to ask about the total supply, but yeah, you guys released the total supply because
let's not get too much into tokenomics and price stuff, but yeah.
No, it was about the deployment. That's why Crypto Jesus was talking about it being too expensive earlier. That's why I was actually wondering about that, because the functionality and everything actually has to deal with the tokenomics. Forget about the price. It's not necessarily about the price. It's just that as it grows, it's going to get a little crazy. And what I wanted to mention earlier, I spoke to a gentleman in Brooklyn about a year ago, and he was actually exploring blockchain technology for historical data. Matt Hamilton, you might know better than I do about this. He apparently was telling me that they need a way to store historical data because we're running out of space. Do you have insight on what this guy was telling me about?
Who was storing out of space? I mean, like I said, the Filecoin network has got a total storage capacity of
no. I'm talking about traditional space,
traditional space.
Historical data with traditional storage space. They're looking to move it onto the blockchain because we're running out of that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
That. I mean, I don't know what specific they're talking about, but I mean, I can kind of understand that. I mean, if you're storing stuff on one of these big cloud providers and you're using, Amazon AWS S3, or you're using IBM Cloud Object Storage, or, you're using the Azure's kind of storage, then it's going to get expensive, right? Over time, it's going to get expensive. And at the moment, storing data on Filecoin is about 4,000 times cheaper than storing it on Amazon. So, I mean, there's a very real, incentive there to use these decentralized systems. It's not just, yes, it's decentralized for decentralized sake, but there's, cost benefits there. There's like I said, the security of it being decentralized and, can't be taken down so easily, all that sort of stuff. So, it's
I just found that actually, I was dumbfounded when this guy was telling me we're having a problem with historical data and we're thinking about storing it on the blockchain. I was just like, I couldn't believe what he was telling me, and I'm talking about traditional historical data, the old stuff. Like, we're talking about where the server, it's like one little server now fits what the old stuff was like in a room. I'm not 100% sure what this guy was talking about. I was just dumbfounded. We're talking about probably systems that existed before I existed.
Right, right, yeah, exactly. I used to work at IBM, right? They've got a, mainframes that are still running there, and whilst they're being updated, and there's more and more storage coming on board, eventually you're going to have to be able to move beyond your own data center and store stuff a bit wider. Like I say, especially for kind of archival purposes. And what's interesting, just a note to make here, just a clarification here. Like Filecoin doesn't actually store the data itself on the blockchain, like a number of other, some of the other storage networks actually store the data itself on the blockchain. What Filecoin does is it stores the proof of the storage of the data on the blockchain, and that allows it to scale much bigger, right? There's no way you could have, whatever it is, I can't remember, it's 16 exabytes or whatever it is, of data on a blockchain, because nobody's going to be able to run a miner on that. Nobody's going to be able to sync that. So the data itself is stored off-chain, and then it uses zero-knowledge proofs to prove that the data is still stored, and it's those proofs that are stored on the blockchain. So you've got a very efficient hybrid system there, in which you're not having to rely on a block, because blockchains inherently are kind of slow, right? Because of the decentralized nature, you've got a synchronized state with a whole bunch of different entities. The cost is shared amongst everybody, but at the same time, it's replicated, right? If you put one piece of data on, then everybody ends up storing that data if they have a copy of the blockchain. So you want to try and keep it as efficient as possible. And kind of that's what Filecoin allows. And then with FVM, the Filecoin virtual machine on top, you can then programmatically access those proofs and that storage, the metadata about the storage from within your smart contracts. So you can build these additional kind of marketplaces, DAOs, etc., on top that can reference that data.
The beautiful thing I was going to add about Filecoin too is the fact that a lot of people have storage they don't use, and it's like going to waste. Like a lot of people have like storage on their computer they don't use. So if you have a 1 terabyte hard drive and you're only using 200 gigabytes of that, 800 gigabytes of that is just sitting there until you get rid of your computer. So this is a way to now incentivize people to, one, have storage, and if you're not using the storage that you have, other people can use it, and you could get compensated for that.
Yeah, I mean, just to set expectations here a little bit, you're not going to be able to be a storage provider on the network with a little bit of old hard drive running in your cupboard, because the kind of the entry level by which storage providers kind of come in and start working on the network is a lot higher than that. So if you're going to start up a storage provider business, you're going to be looking at spending in the tens, possibly hundreds of thousands in terms of like initial commitment to get the equipment and everything up and running, as well as the actual, you need to stake some of the fill token to provide that capacity. So just setting expectations here, you're not going to be able to use like an old laptop to run a storage provider. However,
Go ahead.
Said that, there is we're building a content distribution network, a CDN called Saturn. And Saturn is you can go to, I think it's saturn.network, strn.network. And the Saturn network is a CDN, so a bit like Cloudflare, for example, but then accesses data from IPFS and soon Filecoin as well. And for that, you can earn money.
But so Matt, no, Filecoin grew into this. Like they had very humble beginnings. They're Hollywood. But at the beginning, they was practically letting anybody do it. But I guess times have changed as the more they grew.
Right, exactly. But they're now layering on these additional services. So things like Filecoin Saturn, you can set up in your with some storage. I think you need. I think it's 1 terabyte to start with is the minimum, and you can run a cache node on the CDN, and that means that your computer will be serving up data. If somebody nearby you is requesting that data from the IPFS network, they can get it from your computer, and you will be rewarded based upon the amount of data you're serving out onto the network. So that is a way that people can be, incentivized and participate on a smaller scale than being a full storage provider.
Great points by both Matts. Great conversation. Matt, I really do appreciate you coming here and breaking down Filecoin and FVM. I did put some tweets on the top. If you're a developer, it looks like you guys have some hacker houses coming up and things like that. So definitely check it out. Anything you want to leave us with, or anything that's coming out that we should be keeping our eyes out on?
Yeah, you mentioned hacker houses. We're going to be at ETH Denver. So if anybody's going to be at ETH Denver or near there, then come along and find us and say hi. There's the Spacewalk program in conjunction with ETH Global, the hackathon that's already started. So I don't think you can join that now because I think that's already running. But one of the tweets that you've posted up there is from my colleague HQ and Ducky Han. And if you look at her tweets, she's got a really good thread there on what makes Filecoin a different layer one, which kind of goes back to some of the questions at the start about why would you build on Filecoin versus some of the other layer one networks. And so that's probably one of the most concise kind of answers to that. So definitely go and check that thread out because I think that gives a lot of answers there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming by. And, if you want to come back in a few months and let us know what's going on in the ecosystem, you're always welcome to come back. Just make sure to have your coffee ready.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks ever so much for allowing me on and to chat about this. And I'll definitely keep you updated. Like I said, mainnet launch is start of March. So we're ticking down to that. And that's going to be exciting once that launches. And I'll come back and give you an update afterwards.